Hi, this is Stephen from Own or Disown. In today's video, I'm going to review the new 2020 MSI GE66 Raider, which was supplied to me by HID Evolution. Its design was inspired by the 17-inch GT76 and I like it. Pricing starts at $1,899 and goes all the way up to $2,999. Plus, there is a Dragon Shield limited edition that was designed by Coley Wirtz, who worked on movies such as Iron Man and Star Wars. Only 3,000 of these were made, and I have to tell you that I like this laptop so much that I actually bought that myself, and I will review it when it comes in. Via the HID Evolution configuration page, you can choose the components you want or have it repasted. They always do a fantastic job repasting, and for the nominal fee they charge, I do recommend it. I had them put a Gelid GC Extreme on mine, which is a good standard thermal paste, so I will show you the thermals later in the video. It is available in various configurations with CPU options, i7-10750H, which is a 6-core, or 8 cores, i7-10785H, or the i9-10980HK, like my model has. Graphics options include a 2070 Max P, a 2070 Max P Super, or a 2080 Super Max Q. Two panels are available. You can either get a 240Hz or a 300Hz. Now there is no G-Sync, but you do have the choice of hybrid graphics, which gives you about 7 hours of runtime with the massive 99.9 watt-hour battery, or you can switch to the dedicated GPU, via a reboot, which still got me 3.5 hours of battery life. For storage, you have two M.2 slots, and most stock configurations have a single 1TB with a second open slot for expansion. Most of the standard configurations also have 32GB of RAM in dual channel. Only the base model has 16GB. The Wi-Fi 6 AX200 card is also easily replaceable. Now the GE66 has excellent cooling with 6 heat pipes and 4 heatsinks. MSI does give you excellent control of the fans. You can either blast a cooler boost fan, which can be set to be turned on with the performance mode, or you can manually switch it on via a key on the keyboard. It is quite loud though, and as you'll soon see, you actually don't really need to use it. You can still undervolt this machine, and I ran it stably with a -90mV undervolt and auto fan, or if you prefer, you can create your own fan curve for the CPU and the GPU. Idle fan isn't totally silent by default, as it runs at 2400 RPM, but creating your own fan curve can shut the fan off entirely. Now one standout feature is the Mystic light that extends to a beautiful light bar at the front that encompasses 16.8 million colours. You can choose various effects and adjust brightness via the OVERWATCH software. It really is very good, and it can be turned off, leaving a transparent strip which one might feel would look strange or perhaps out of place, but you forget that it is really there. The lighting is complemented with an equally impressive RGB keyboard. Some RGB keyboards can be too bright, or some not bright enough, but I found this just to have just the right balance, and like the light bar, you can have full control via the software to either change the colour of each individual key, choose a preset pattern and assign it to a particular function key, or create a macro. I thought the SteelSeries keyboard was very good. It was extremely solid with no flex. If you are familiar with the MSI keyboards, you will know that they switch the FN key to the right, which I am not a fan of, but this actually can be swapped with the Windows key via the Dragon Center software. I don't like how small and cramped the FN and the right control keys are, and it does take some time getting used to. But one advantage of the FN placement is that you can control volume and screen brightness with one hand via the arrow keys. A far simpler option would have been to let us have the ability to switch the function keys to media keys, so we wouldn't have to press FN and F7 to open up the Dragon Center, for example. At least when you do press FN, the function keys light up, making them stand out. There is no number pad, so that might be a deal breaker for some, but personally I don't mind that. The deck itself is made of aluminium and it's quite clean looking. It would have been nice perhaps to have speakers at the sides like the Raider 15, but strangely they have them firing downwards at the front into the bottom panel rather than facing sideways so they can fire out of the side audio grills. The result are speakers that sound a little bit underwhelming. They have average volume, but do improve if you do cup your hand around them, so sound fires towards you rather than into the chassis itself. Even though MSI claimed to have increased the bass by 15% over its predecessor, I have heard better, and they do sound a little bit tinny. Unfortunately, it failed my real-time audio latency test, so I suggest one of the new Legion models or a Ryzen-based system if you are into music production. The Windows Precision trackpad is plastic, but it does work fine. It's a one-piece design with no separate buttons, which is a shame, but doing so does make it a reasonable size. The rest of the chassis is also very stiff. MSI reinforced it compared to the GE65. The aluminum lid has no flex at all. It certainly is less gamey than the GE65 was, and it's a break from their usual design, which normally has the red motifs either side of their logo. I must say, I do prefer this design. The hinges have also been made stiffer. They do look very robust, and you get very little screen wobble. The underside panel is made of plastic, which does help shield you from the heat very well. Another star of the show is the 300Hz 3 millisecond panel, which is nice and fast for gaming, although I still saw tearing when I played Overwatch. Now, a friend of mine says he has the 240Hz panel and reported the same when playing Halo. Still, you can attach the GE66 to a FreeSync or G-Sync monitor and enjoy tear-free gaming that way. Notebook Check measured the 240Hz panel to have a grey-to-grey response time of 16.4 milliseconds. In my ghosting test, there appeared to be no differences between the 300Hz panel and the 240Hz panel of the Mach 17, so for most people, I think the 240Hz would just be fine. The AUO panel has a reasonable colour gamut of 94% of sRGB, 72% of NTSC, and 73% of DCI-P3, so it will be fine for some content creation work. At 295 nits, it's not the brightest, and when I compared it against the Legion 7i's 500 nit panel, it did look rather muted. Although it doesn't have a Thunderbolt 3 port, it does have a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C, an HDMI 2, and a mini DisplayPort 1.4, which does allow you to connect to 3 monitors, plus you have 3 USB Type-A ports. Now, for someone who makes lots of videos like myself, having a fast SD card reader that fits the card most of the way in is a big plus. Now finally, we do get a 1080p webcam on a laptop. I don't know why it's been taking so long. Now granted, it's not as good as one would expect, but it's still better than perhaps most 720p ones. Now, microphone on mine, pretty bad. A friend of mine's got one, says it's fine, so I think it's just a problem with my unit. And so anyway, but another issue is when you run on battery, it's very, very laggy. During a CPU only task like a handbrake encode, the PL1 is 76 watts, which translates to a decent clock rate of 4100 MHz, which is quite similar to what you get with the i7-10875H with a PL1 of 120 watts. And using the max fan, we see the CPU settling at around 90 degrees. Now I do think if you had liquid metal repasting, it would help quite a bit. Looking at the time taken to do the encode, the high-powered Mech 15 G3 and the GE66 with its i9 CPU are basically the same, whilst the Legion 7i with the same CPU as the Mech was about 90 seconds behind, whilst the Ryzen 7 4800H in the Omen 15 was a clear winner. But in general, the undervolted i9 did have a slight advantage over the best i7-10875H out there, and it's definitely an improvement over the regular 8-core i7 without an undervolt. But for anyone using software that is multi-threaded, then the new Ryzen CPUs are hard to beat. Let's look at what difference the max fan has over autofan using performance mode. Far Cry 5 works the CPU quite a lot, so this will be a worst case scenario. With the autofan, the CPU does reach about 94 degrees, whilst the max fan brings that down by about 2 degrees. It fluctuates quite a lot, so the average will likely be in the 80s. Now this is no undervolt. The max fan does help cool the GPU nicely. We see about 4 to 5 degree reduction there. Now, I compare the max fan against autofan, but using a 90 millivolt undervolt. The CPU drops from 53 watts to 45 watts and it peaks around 90 degrees, so it's definitely worthwhile doing. Here I show balance mode with max fan at the top and silent mode with autofan at the bottom. Balance mode settles around 51 watts and tops out around about 90 degrees, and I see no hit in frame rate. So if I was gaming on this laptop, I would use balanced with an undervolt and autofan. Now silent mode drops the CPU to 30 watts and results in a 13% hit in frame rate. but you still are getting a great frame rate with cool temperatures. So if I was worried about undervolting and wanted to keep the fan noise low, I would use this mode. For my testing, I used performance mode with an undervolt and auto fan. Far Cry New Dawn is another game that will punish your CPU, and I did see it hit 94 degrees, but on the whole I was pleased with the thermals, and the CPU clock rate was steady at 4400 MHz. The 2080 Super Max Q is the 90 watt model, but in some titles you will actually see it hit 105 watts. In my charts you will notice I compared against the Legion 7i with the same GPU, and in all games the GE66 had it beat. I also showed a frame rate at lower quality settings, so you can judge whether you can get close to the 300Hz refresh rate of the panel. Now games like Overwatch, you will definitely get close to that, and I even played this attached to my QHD monitor and still got great frame rates. Now look at that, 285 FPS at medium settings. Now this approaches the 300 FPS cap that the game has. Now games like Battlefield 5 are pretty tough to run. Here it is at ultra settings, DX11. Outside of the RTX 2080 in a big Clevo chassis, this is the fastest I have seen a laptop play this game. It was incredible, and the thermals are great too. Even at these settings I saw a 1% low of 83 FPS, and it was some 16% ahead of the 2080 Super Max Q in the Legion 7. It's fantastic. So you can overclock the GPU. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I went from 114 FPS to 118. That's compared to the 109 on the Legion 7i, so that's quite a nice improvement. And also, if you look at the Time Spy and Firestrike scores, you've got the GE66 here in red and blue at the top. I scored a Firestrike GPU score of 24,004 points. That's close to a 2070 Super desktop card. It's in between a 2060 Super and a 2070 Super. Fantastic performance. So how would I sum up the MSI GE66? Well, like I said, it was good enough for me to buy it. It has a long battery life and has a mux switch, so you can take advantage of just using the dedicated GPU. Such as in my use case of using it, it does accelerate my video encoding faster than it does if it was in hybrid mode. It can also be undervolted to help manage thermals, plus you have great fan control. The screen is decent. I would have preferred the Legion 7 G-Sync screen, but it's okay for my editing and it looks great when gaming. It's built very solidly. There's literally no flex anywhere, and they throw in a 1080p webcam and a fast SD card reader. I'm sure the mic on my unit is faulty, as others have said theirs are fine. The RGB lighting is beyond cool, and all I can say is I cannot wait for my Dragon Shield limited edition to arrive. Now thank you for watching. If you liked my video, make sure to subscribe. And check out what HID Evolution have to offer, as they stock a great range of laptops which you can configure to your liking. Bye now.